Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and our continuing series on the MiSter FPGA DE10 Nano project. And this is the second Sega Saturn core testing video of 2023. And you guys keep watching them, you guys keep asking me to make them, and I'm happy to do so. And if there is a game I haven't tested yet, or if you want me to revisit something from the early tests of last year, leave me a comment down below and tell me what you want me to see, and I am happy to do it. Before we get too far involved, do me a huge favor down below, hit like, subscribe, that notification bell definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But one of the #1 games you asked me to revisit was Deep Fear, and I'm hoping that's because more people are realizing how good of a sleeper hit survival horror game this is for the Sega Saturn. Last time I tested it, there was absolutely no audio, and that does persist to the current core. But having watched the old capture, it does seem like the frame rate has improved, and the controls don't feel as sluggish as I first found them. Now this game does use tank controls, so I'm not saying that they're responsive, but it seems like this game is just overall running better than it did before. And I do hope that we get audio on this eventually, because it's neither sound effect nor music audio that we get, so it makes me wonder what isn't strung together in the current core code. And I'm also curious if this CRT TV here has any RGB hookups in the back. Every time I see a TV, it makes me wonder. The only time that this game stops running perfectly is when you go into these text situations, and I'm pretty sure that's because the Saturn's probably changing the video signal, something that it loved to do all the time. But the FMV videos no longer freeze this game for the most part, and what I'm seeing in the current core is FMV videos are working much better. It used to be a rule of thumb that you wanted to mash start through them so that the core wouldn't hang, and I don't get that as much. And this FMV right here is absolutely spectacular, pure 90s cheese in the best way possible, but you cannot argue with that drift right there. Why I'm showing you this is because the FMVs are working just so much better on the current code. It used to be that you didn't want to see them whatsoever. Now you can pretty much watch them and enjoy whatever is going on. But getting into the gameplay, it is just working exactly as I would expect. This is basically like the Saturn's Ridge Racer. I'm not saying it's as good, but it is a ton of fun, and I'm getting full audio, full sound effects, good control, and a frame rate that seems to match what I've seen online. Now this isn't a game that I own, so I watched other playthroughs and counted frames, and it seems like it's running at full speed on Saturn. But it's just so fun to see all these 3D polygonal games improving, because a lot of them used to be a lot rougher back like September of last year. And this was another game you requested to see tested on the videos, and I am delivering it for you. And again, one more time, if you want to see something else tested, leave me that comment down below. But it's so much fun to see this working on Saturn. 6 months ago, it seemed like something like this may never run. Now here we are, and everything seems to be working perfectly fine, and it shows that the Saturn could throw around a good amount of 3D polygons at the same time, just like the PlayStation 1 did. It isn't a Ridge Racer, but it is pretty damn close. Now another game that everybody asked me to keep testing and I kept forgetting was Albert Odyssey, and I'm just showing you guys the intro to it just to give you a sense of what is working, because the intro is extremely long. But as we get right into the gameplay, we're getting the full voice samples, we're getting the music, and all the 2D graphical effects are working exactly as they should. And I have heard from other people that I've asked, they've got like halfway through this game and they've been able to play it, or maybe not halfway, you can't really say from the current core, 3-4 hours in just checking it out, and everything seems to be functioning as you would expect. And it just looks so good on the clean HDMI output of MiSter. It just looks absolutely spectacular, and I'm so excited for that. Even though the Saturn has native RGB out, I 100% understand that not everyone has an RGB capable PVM or monitor next to them, and for a lot of people, even if they own a Sega Saturn, when this core is done, playing it in HDMI out on your television is probably going to be the best you've ever seen the Saturn, because these pixels look absolutely spectacular as I currently see them. But one game that nobody asked me to test, and damn it you should be, is Night Striker by Taito. This is a banger. This is Hall of Fame first ballot level good, and it has a spectacular soundtrack by Zuntata. I think the best music they ever made, and the best part is it sounds amazing on the current core, so go ahead and listen for like 45 seconds and I will be right back. But it's good. That sound sample there serves two purposes. One, to show you that in certain games, the Sega Saturn audio output on the MiSter core is spectacular, and two, that Night Striker has some of the best video game music ever made. This game is just incredible. If you've never played it, find a way to do so for me. And if you're currently testing the Sega Saturn core, I can confirm you can beat this game from start to finish because I have done it twice with different routes. Now on the Taito kick we have Chase HQ plus SCI, or Special Criminal Investigation, and more people asked to see this than I actually thought. I love these two games, they're spectacular, and you guys made me happy when you requested it over and over again, because I know there's more love out there for these games. Taking a look at SCI first, the later game in the series, it's working exactly how it should, except for some strange reason switching from low to high on the gears seems to intermittently work and not work in my testing. I'm not sure what's going on there. It could have been a controller mapping issue, but I haven't seen it crop up in any other game. But I had issues getting into high gear. But watch this tunnel right here. As we go into it, there's a slight flash, and I pause momentarily trying to capture it, but otherwise we got through that tunnel perfectly fine. Now let's move over to the original Chase HQ. It's another fun game, it lacks the shooting mechanic, but this one's doing ever so slightly different things, and that's why you need to test different modes, and if there's more than one game on a compilation, testing both games at the same time, because you will see here, soon we're going to go into a tunnel. The game just basically stops and lags to a crawl and then pops back into existence. But when we leave the tunnel, it's going to hang for just a second and work perfectly fine. It's just a weird aberration, but that's the current status of those two games. Now you guys kept asking me to talk about Proteus, and apparently you don't watch to the end of the videos because last October I talked about this, and this is another game that I think is working absolutely one-to-one with original Sega Saturn hardware. The sound is incredible, the controls are fluid, the frame rate is perfect, and you can finish it because I have done so as well. So that's two games for this video that you can 100% complete on the current Sega Saturn MiSter core if you so wish to do so. Night Striker and Proteus. If you just want to play a game from start to finish, pick these two. You will be 100% good to go and you will enjoy the hell out of the experience. Now this next game, 3 of you asked me to test and I couldn't believe anybody did, but I am very happy as well, and that is going to be Dark Seed. This is a horror point-and-click adventure game that runs on the Sega Saturn in the Japanese region, and if you can't tell already, it takes heavily inspired visuals from H.R. Giger and the Alien franchise, although his art existed before the Alien movies did, and he was making it before that. Just a little weird factoid. But I can't believe 3 of you asked me to test Darkseid, but it makes me happy because I love point-and-click adventure games. They're just not a genre that lends itself well to talking about on YouTube, or else I probably would have already done an adventure game series of some of my favorite adventure games of all time. Has a little bit of a sort of horror, gory vibe to it that's great on Sega Saturn, and as far as the core is concerned, it was playing normally. I got the audio, I got the music, and we were good to go. But moving back to the FMV segments as well, the last time I tested Sakura Wars, a game that you wanted to see, the FMV would freeze like halfway through to 3/4 of the way through, or if it did play all the way through, it would never transition to the main title. With the current core, that is no longer the case, and I am cutting this FMV a little bit for time, even though it is spectacular. You can watch this from start to finish, and it will go to the main menu. It'll let you get into the game, and this is the fan English translation as well. So that's a big takeaway I've been noticing recently, is some of the components around the gameplay, things like FMV videos, no longer have to be mashed through with the start button to try to get into the game. And that's great because there's so many good FMV intros, especially on the Japanese side of Saturn. Being able to see them and enjoy them is not as important as the gameplay, but it is a big component. But the best game that I played for this test, the takeaway, is Drift King. It just works. The frame rate is as good as any frame rate can be for 3D on Saturn, which is to say it's not 30 frames a second, but it's doing its best. The controls are responsive, drifting works well, and all of the sound effects and all of the music are just here. It's just a game that's working, and it's one that if you never played it before, you should check it out, because it's a lot better than you probably would believe it is. And that's the thing. more games are just working on the Sega Saturn core, and I can recommend you go and try more games if you're currently testing it than I ever have been able to do before. But that is the second test of January 2023, and this is like the 8th month in a row that I've been running these tests, and you guys seem to really enjoy them. And again, give me game recommendations down below. It is a lot of work to keep coming up with new games, or if you want to see me test something that I did in the original batch to see if it's working better, leave me that comment down below as well. But at this point in time, there is a good list of games that you can play from start to finish on the current core, and that is spectacular. Sure to that, I'll have a video on MiSter next week and videos throughout the week as well, but I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.